Hi there, it's Sasia. Every time I take the IELTS exam, I feel a lot of pressure to find all 40 answers in IELTS reading in just 60 minutes. I've taken IELTS academic and general training, both paper-based and computer-based formats, and today my score is band 9. But I still remember how confusing this test was the first time I took it to study in London. Back then, I couldn't read fast in English and I didn't know a fair number of words. But I still managed to get band 8 in IELTS reading and 7.5 overall. So today I want to talk to you about techniques you can use to spend your time wisely and answer as many questions as you can. Okay? Let's get started. To manage your time well in IELTS reading, you need to know how IELTS reading is organized. Basically, you always have 3 sections. If you take the academic test, you have 3 passages, so it's very obvious, but if you take the general training test, you may have up to 5 passages because they are shorter. But in this case, you will have 2 in the first section, 2 in the second, and probably 1 longer text in the third. Why it's important? Well, because the official IELTS instructions read spend about 20 minutes on each section. But I think this advice is problematic. Basically, the first section is always the easiest, and the last is always the most difficult. So you need more time to think about those questions, to look for your answers. And if you spend good 20 minutes to answer questions which are the easiest, then you won't have time to think about the harder questions. So if you want to get to a higher score, you need to answer questions more quickly, about 15 minutes for the first section, 20 for the second, and 25 for the third. Only in the last exam, I actually got that perfect band 9 score in IELTS reading. Before that, I got 8.5 several times, which means that I always made a couple of mistakes. And every time I finish all 3 passages, all 3 sections, I have some questions I want to go back to, some questions I couldn't answer straight away. And I need time to look for those answers. So if you spend 15, 20, 25 minutes, that can bring you to about band 8, which is enough for all purposes. But if you really want to get a high score, then perhaps you need to answer questions even more quickly. Something like 12 minutes on the first section, 18 on the second, 23 on the third, and then you have those 7 minutes to think about the hardest questions you couldn't answer. So this is only for advanced IELTS test takers. But my previous advice is for everyone. Do not spend too much time on any single question. If you can't find the answer, if you don't understand what the answer is, mark it to review and move on. If you take the computer-based test, you can actually tick to review and the question will become round and you will know which ones you need to go back to. Basically, the vast majority of IELTS candidates can't answer all the questions correctly. There are mistakes and that's alright, because with this test, all you need is to pass it. If you pass it with an exceptionally good score, it doesn't really give you anything extra. You either get your visa or you don't get your visa. You either get that offer from a university or not. The university will not give you a better offer if you provide a test with a higher score. All you need is to meet the requirements. So let's talk how many questions you actually need to answer. So this is a table, and as you can see, there are numbers for academic and general training exams, and they are different. That's because academic texts are more difficult, they are more scientific, vocabulary there is more challenging. So you need to answer fewer questions to get to the same score. And some numbers are in bold and some are not. That's because the official IELTS information is limited. So that information is in bold, but I also wanted to show you what score you're gonna get for each number of answers. So I filled up this table and that information is not in bold, and this is my best guess. So if you need band 6, that's 23 questions in IELTS Academic and 30 in IELTS General Training. For band 7, that's 30 questions in IELTS Academic and 34 in General Training. Even for band 8, that's 35 questions in IELTS Academic and 38 in General Training, which means that there will be some mistakes, but that's alright as long as you can get to the score you need. There is an important difference between IELTS listening and reading, because in IELTS listening you have some time after the test to check your answers, to transfer them to the answer sheet, but you don't get any extra time in IELTS reading. You only get 60 minutes and that's it. So you need to make sure that all your answers are in the correct place. If you take a computer-based test, you select your answers on the screen directly, so that's easier. But if you take the paper-based test, then you need to transfer them to the answer sheet. And I think that you shouldn't be answering on the answer sheet straight away. You should use the question sheets, the brochure, to answer questions, and then you transfer your answers. Then you can concentrate on one activity at a time. And when you're transferring your answers, you should be thinking about the spelling of words and also the answer format, because sometimes you need to write down a word, but sometimes a letter. So you need to be thinking about that. And it's safest if you don't leave all that until the end of the test. So answer questions to the first section, transfer your answers. Second section, transfer your answers. Third section, transfer them. Or when there is 5 minutes before the end of the test, transfer all the answers you have until that moment and only then start thinking about the questions which you haven't answered by that point yet. Again, you need to manage time, and it's easier if you take the computer-based test because the timer will be on the screen. If you take a paper-based test, then you need to remember how much time is left. You will have a clock on the wall, so the moment the reading section begins, write down what time is on that clock. Otherwise, you may forget. And invigilators will only tell you when you have, I think, 10 minutes left, 5 minutes left, and 2 minutes. So they will not tell you you have 40 minutes left, you have 20 minutes left. You have to figure that out yourself. Now, how can you answer more questions in IELTS reading? Well, there are 2 types of reading, intensive and extensive. Intensive is when you read slowly and carefully, probably pronouncing each word in your head or sometimes even moving your lips and trying to understand everything. When we learn the language, we sometimes get used to reading like that all the time. The problem is it takes a lot of time. Extensive reading is how we scan newspapers. We don't really pay attention to everything, we just read quickly, and if something interests us, we slow down. That's exactly what you should do in IELTS reading. Luckily, most questions come in order. This means that you can read the first question and then you start scanning the text. You're reading it, but you're reading it quickly. And if you don't understand some words or even a sentence, don't stop, don't reread it, move on, just look for your answer. When you feel that the answer is somewhere there, then you slow down, you read the question again, you read the sentence extensively and try to find your answer. I've analyzed quite a few IELTS reading questions, and sometimes the most difficult words which you don't understand don't determine the answer. You may read a sentence and there is a part which you don't understand at all. I still don't understand everything in IELTS reading because they use a lot of scientific terms which I'm not familiar with. And they know that will be the case. But if you concentrate on what matters, you may be able to disregard the parts you don't understand and still find the answer. This is exactly how I managed to get band 8 in my first test, even though there were quite a lot of words I didn't know. So concentrating is very important, and I actually have a separate video about which questions come in order, which don't come in order, and which strategies you should have for both of them. I will link it in the description. What else can you do? A couple of things. Well, the first one is to highlight keywords. When you read a question and it's long, highlight the main words. That will help you remind yourself what you're looking for, because we get distracted, we forget. Then you will look, okay, that's what I need. When you're reading the passage, you should also highlight keywords such as names, dates, names of theories, locations. Sometimes you will find one of them later on, and then you'll be able to quickly get back to the correct place in your passage. So what can you do to prepare for IELTS reading? I think it's important to learn about different types of questions. Then you see the type, you know what it is, and you know what to do to solve it. That saves time. Recently, I actually published a new video with the main types of questions, strategies for each, and some practice questions. I will link it in just a moment. You should also take several practice tests. Not many, just several. You need to learn the format. You need to feel how quickly you need to answer all the questions, how much time you have. And it's best to take official practice tests because they have the same level of difficulty as the real exam. So I have all the free official tests linked in my IELTS study plan. You can also buy a book like that. So Cambridge practice tests. So that's number 16. In summer 2022, there will be number 17. But as long as you have a book published in the last 3 years, that's fine. So solve those tests. They will teach you a lot. And if you'd like to get the study plan with all the useful links, it's right on the screen. The video I talked about is on the screen too. And thank you so much for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam. Bye.